I never thought my cat Whiskers would be anything more than a lazy, purring ball of fur. But that was before the night everything changed. It started with strange noises outside my window. Whispers in the dark, carried on a wind that shouldn't have been blowing. I peered out, expecting to see nothing but shadows. Instead, I saw Whiskers, his eyes glowing in eerie green, sitting beside a cloaked figure. The next morning, Whiskers was back on his favorite cushion, acting as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. Something was different about him. The way he watched me, the way he seemed to understand every word I said. Days passed, and odd things began to happen around the house. Objects moved on their own, shadows danced where there should have been none, and always, Whiskers was there, observing silently. I started to feel like I was being watched, even when I was alone. Well, alone, except for Whiskers. His presence, once comforting, now felt unsettling. One night I woke to find Whiskers perched on my chest, his eyes boring into mine. In that moment I heard a voice in my head. It wasn't mine. It was ancient, powerful, and decidedly female. "Your cat serves me now," it said. "But fear not, for he protects you still." I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, but deep down I knew it wasn't. Whiskers had become something more than just a pet. He was a familiar, bound to a witch whose powers I could only imagine. From that night on, I noticed changes in Whiskers. He would disappear for hours, sometimes days, only to return looking tired, but somehow more aware, more powerful. I caught glimpses of magic around him, a shimmer in the air when he walked by, plants that grew too quickly in his presence, birds that fell silent when he entered the garden. But despite these changes, Whiskers still curled up on my lap each evening, purring contentedly. He still greeted me at the door when I came home from work. He was still my cat, even if he now belonged to someone else as well. Weeks turned into months, and I learned to live with this new reality. I never saw the witch, but I felt her presence. In the whisper of leaves on a still day, in the flicker of candlelight when there was no draft. And always there was Whiskers, standing guard between two worlds. One stormy night, I heard a crash downstairs. Fear gripped me as I crept down to investigate. In the living room, illuminated by a flash of lightning, stood a figure. Tall, hooded, radiating power. The witch had come, but before I could react, Whiskers was there, placing himself between us. His fur stood on end, his tail lashing back and forth. I heard that voice again in my head. "Your protector serves me well," it said. "But his loyalty to you remains strong. You need not fear me, mortal." With another flash of lightning, she was gone. Whiskers turned to me, his eyes glowing that eerie green. In that moment I understood. He was more than just a familiar. He was a bridge between two worlds, keeping balance, protecting both. Life went on, stranger than before but not unpleasant. Whiskers continued his dual role, pet and familiar, guardian of two realms. And I learned to accept the magic that now touched my life, grateful for the protection it offered. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear whispers on the wind. I see shadows move in ways they shouldn't. But I'm not afraid anymore, because I know that whatever lurks in the darkness, Whiskers is there, watching, protecting. He may serve a witch, but he's still my cat. And in this strange new world we inhabit, that's enough for me. I've always been drawn to old houses, their creaky floors and musty scents, whispering tales of bygone eras. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found in Blackwood Manor. It was a grand old place, all Gothic spires and ivy-covered walls. I'd been hired to catalog its contents for an estate sale. Easy money, I thought. I couldn't have been more wrong. The first day passed without incident. I worked my way through dusty rooms filled with antiques and curiosities. It wasn't until the sun began to set that things changed. I was in the main hall when I first noticed it. A portrait of a stern-looking man in Victorian dress. As the light faded, I could have sworn his eyes followed me. I shook it off as a trick of the shadows and retired to my room for the night. But sleep didn't come easy. The house creaked and groaned around me, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When I finally drifted off, my dreams were filled with painted faces and whispered secrets. I woke with a start in the dead of night. Something had pulled me from my sleep, a sound I couldn't quite place. I crept out of bed and into the hallway, following the faint echoes. It led me back to the main hall. In the pale moonlight streaming through the windows, I saw something impossible. The portraits were moving. Not just the eyes this time, but entire figures shifting within their frames. I stood frozen, unable to believe what I was seeing. The stern Victorian man turned his head to look directly at me. His lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear. Then, to my horror, he reached out a hand towards me. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding. But I wasn't quick enough. His painted hand became solid, grasping my arm with surprising strength. I felt a pull, and suddenly I was falling. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the manor. I stood on a foggy London street, gaslights casting eerie shadows. The Victorian man stood before me, no longer confined to his frame. "Welcome," he said, his voice echoing strangely, "to the world behind the canvas." I tried to speak, but no words came out. He smiled, a cold, mirthless thing. "Your voice holds no power here. This is our realm, where the past lives on." With a wave of his hand, the scene changed. We were in a grand ballroom, filled with dancing figures in elaborate costumes, but something was off. Their movements were too fluid, their faces too perfect. They were still paintings, brought to life in this impossible world. The Victorian man guided me through the crowd. "We've been waiting for someone like you," he said. "Someone to hear our stories, to see our world." As we moved, I saw flashes of other scenes. A battlefield littered with fallen soldiers, a ship tossing on a stormy sea, a quiet garden where a lady sat, tears streaming down her face. "Each portrait holds a story," my guide explained. "A moment frozen in time. But here, those moments live on, and now you're a part of them." I wanted to run, to find a way back to the real world. But everywhere I turned, there were only more painted scenes, more stories unfolding before my eyes. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time had no meaning in this place. I was shown secrets and scandals, loves and losses, all played out by figures who should have been long dead. Just when I thought I'd be trapped forever, I heard a sound. A real sound from the world I knew. The chiming of the manor's old clock, striking dawn. The Victorian man frowned. "Our time grows short," he said. "But remember, the night will come again, and we'll be waiting." With a dizzying rush, I found myself back in the main hall. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and the portraits were once again still and silent. But now I knew the truth. As I looked at each painted face, I could see the lives hidden behind the canvas, and I knew that when night fell again, their world would come alive once more. I should leave, run far from this place, and never look back. But something holds me here. The stories, the secrets, the impossible world behind the paint. So I'll stay, at least for now. And when darkness falls, I'll step once more into the realm of the haunting portraits, where the past never truly dies. I should have known better than to follow the whispers. But on Halloween night, when the veil between worlds is thin, curiosity can be a dangerous thing. It started with a rumor, passed from lips to ears in hushed tones. A market, they said, hidden in the shadows of our town. A place where wishes could be granted for a price. I laughed it off at first, just another urban legend, I thought. But as the sun set on All Hallows Eve, I found myself drawn to the abandoned subway station on the edge of town. The entrance was boarded up, covered in years of graffiti, but as I approached, I noticed a faint glow seeping through the cracks. And there, etched into the wood, was a symbol I'd never seen before. A crescent moon, wrapped around a star. I reached out to touch it, and the boards simply melted away. The glow grew stronger, and I found myself stepping into a world I never knew existed. The old station had transformed. Flickering lanterns cast eerie shadows on stone walls. The air was thick with the scent of incense and something darker. And everywhere I looked, there were stalls. But these weren't your typical market stalls. One booth was manned by a figure shrouded in mist, selling bottles of swirling colors. Another displayed artifacts that seemed to shift and change as I watched. And in the corner, a hooded figure bent over a crystal ball, whispering fortunes to wide-eyed customers. I wandered through the market, my heart pounding. This was impossible, and yet here it was, the shadow market, hidden in plain sight. As I moved deeper into the market, the stalls became stranger. I saw cages filled with creatures that couldn't possibly exist. Jars of glowing liquids lined shelves, their contents pulsing with an otherworldly light. And then I saw it. A small booth, tucked away in a dark corner. A sign hung above it, written in a script I couldn't read. But somehow, I knew what it said. Wishes granted. The woman behind the counter smiled as I approached. Her eyes were too dark, her teeth too sharp, but her voice was like honey when she spoke. "What is it you desire, mortal?" she asked. "Fame? Fortune? Love?" I hesitated. This was madness. I should turn and run. But the words spilled out before I could stop them. "I want to be special," I said, "to stand out from the crowd." Her smile widened. "A simple wish," she purred. "But all wishes have a price. Are you willing to pay it?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. She reached beneath the counter and produced a small, ornate box. "Your wish is in here," she said. "But remember, once opened, it cannot be undone." I took the box, my hands shaking. It felt warm to the touch, almost alive. I mumbled my thanks and turned to leave, clutching my prize. As I made my way back through the market, I noticed things I hadn't before. The desperation in the eyes of the other customers. The way the shadows seemed to cling to them, growing darker with each purchase. I burst out of the station, gasping for air. The night was quiet, normal, as if the shadow market had never existed. But the box in my hands told me otherwise. At home, I sat on my bed, staring at the box. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to forget this night had ever happened. But the temptation was too strong. With trembling fingers, I opened the lid. A swirl of shadows erupted from within, wrapping around me like a cocoon. I felt a tingling sensation, starting in my fingertips and spreading throughout my body. When the shadows cleared, I rushed to the mirror. At first, I saw no change, but then I noticed it. A faint shimmer to my skin, a glow in my eyes that hadn't been there before. I was special now, just as I'd wished, but as I watched, the shimmer grew stronger, the glow brighter, and I realized with growing horror that I was becoming more than just special. I was becoming visible. Too visible. People would stare, point, whisper. I would stand out, all right, but not in the way I'd hoped. As the glow intensified, I understood the true price of my wish. Be careful what you ask for in the shadow market, because sometimes the cost of standing out is never being able to blend in again. And as Halloween night faded into dawn, I wondered how many others had made deals in the dark, only to regret them in the light of day. We hope you enjoyed this chilling tale. If it sent shivers down your spine, give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. What was your favorite part? Don't forget to subscribe for more spine-tingling stories and hit that notification bell so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky and remember, sometimes the darkest shadows hide the most terrifying secret.